Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you for being here today, this week, this morning. See, it's morning for me. In a recent video, one of y'all's like, hey, it's morning. I can hear roosters. Two things. Yes, for me, it's morning. It's 5:18-ish a.m. And also, roosters crow all day. They don't care if it's morning. They just start in the morning and stop when the sun goes down. We are in Deuteronomy chapter 7. Praise Yah. And I am going to do my best to read the Father's Word with y'all. I have flu-like symptoms, and we're just going to power through. Deuteronomy 7. I think it's highly valuable for us to just go back one verse for context to Deuteronomy 6, verse 25. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh Elohim as he has commanded us. It is righteousness when we guard to do all this command. The knife hand poignancy of Deuteronomy is highly appreciated by one like me, even if it is redundant. You know, Deuteronomy means the second telling, so even if we've heard all this stuff before, good. We need to hear it again, lest we should forget, because this Bible is full of stories. It is the story of people who knew Yah and did his things and then forgot. Deuteronomy 7. When Yahweh, your Elohim, brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. A 7-nation army. Interesting. That is the first verse of Deuteronomy 7 that we're dealing with today. Go to Genesis 15. In the beginning, back in the day. We got to get Jocko to start reading the Bible. Back in the day, Abraham was operating. Page 14. And so Abraham has actually just had an apocalyptic vision here in Genesis 15, which there is a non-canonical text called the Apocalypse of Abraham, which is, the only other place in the Bible. See, Abraham has it's not actually in the Bible, is it? Abraham has a vision of Yeshua. Abraham does. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the father of the faith. And in fact, that's backed up by John 8, verse 56. But Abraham knew Yeshua. But in the context of this vision, We'll just read it from 12. And it came to be when the sun was going down and a deep sleep fell upon Abram, that see, a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he, Yah, said to Abram, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years, the Israelites in Mitzrayim. But the nation whom they serve I am going to judge, and afterwards let them come out with great possessions, which happened. Now as for you, you are to go to your fathers in peace. You are to be buried at a good old age, meaning this is not going to happen in your time. Then, in the 4th generation, they shall return here for their crookedness, for the crookedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be, when the sun went down and it was dark, that see a smoking oven and a burning torch passing between those pieces. On the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abraham, saying, I have given this land to your seed from the river of Mitzrayim to the great river, the river Euphrates, with the Canaanite, and the Kenizzite, and the Cadmonite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Rephaim, and the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. I have given this land, made a covenant with Abraham. I have given this land to your seed from the river Mitzrayim to the great river, the river Euphrates. So, here we are now. We're on the Jordan River. Moshe, many hundreds of years later, is with these people, the sons of Abraham, his seed. When Yahweh, your Elohim, brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than you. And when Yahweh, your Elohim, gives them over to you, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them and show them no favor. This phrase in the scriptures, put them under the ban, means to completely destroy them. And here's why. And do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son, and you do not take his daughter for your son. For he turns your sons away from following me to serve other mighty ones. Then the displeasure of Yahweh shall burn against you and promptly destroy you. This is reminiscent of Numbers 25, verse 3. Page 169. We'll start at 1. And Israel dwelt in Shittim, and the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. And they invited the people to the slaughterings of their mighty ones, and the people ate and bowed down to their mighty ones. Thus Israel was joined to Baal Peor, and the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Israel. And Yahweh said to Moshe, take all the leaders of the people and hang them up before Yahweh, before the sun, so that the burning displeasure of Yahweh turns away from Israel. And Moshe said to the judges of Israel, each one of you kill his men who were joined to Baal Peor. So we're told repeatedly not to go whoring. This is the concept of adultery. Biblical adultery, yes, has to do with a man sleeping with somebody who's not his wife, but it's much deeper than that. It has to do with us turning away from Father Yah and whoring with all these other things, idols, wealth, opulence, decadence, convenience, fantasy, fallacy. Babylon. All right. Back to Deuteronomy. But this is what you do to them. You don't intermarry with them. You completely destroy them. But this is what you do to them. Break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and cut down their asherim and burn their carved images with fire. The asherim were these fertility goddess poles that looked a lot like a phallus. They're basically long poles that came up to the ground that then expanded into a bulbous head on top. And, I mean, clearly symbolic of fertility. A long erect pole standing straight up with a bulbous head on top. And they would carve these little faces, actually quite demonic looking faces in some cases, on these asherim. And they would dance around them and just do all kinds of pagan shenaniganry around these things. So that's what an asherim is. And from there, I mean, it's directly tied to Ashtaroth, which is Ishtar, which is Easter, which is why we are told, do not celebrate Easter. The Easter sunrise service in the Christian church is pagan sun worship mixing with the fertility, lowercase g goddess, Ashtaroth, Ishtar worship. If you've ever tried to reconcile what does a bunny pooping eggs have to do with the resurrection of Messiah, the answer is not a damn thing. Nothing. It's just one more thing that pre-existed the Christian church, and that from 312 AD forward got intermarried into what the early Christian church was doing. And you do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son. You do not take his daughter for your son, for he turns your sons away from following me. So we are to destroy these things. For you are a set-apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all peoples on the face of the earth. Man, this could be a long one. Deuteronomy 28, verse 1, which is on page 215. And it shall be, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard, to do all his commands, which I command you today, that Yahweh your Elohim shall set you high above all nations. And then Deuteronomy 28 is literally a list of the blessings and curses you will experience. Blessings if you obey and curses if you don't. Well, my Jesus would never read your Bible, because he would and does. I just got something in my eye. Full stop. We need a crash team in here. What we need is more human hydraulic fluid. Stand by. For you are set apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. We would do well to remember that. A treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Yahweh did not set his love on you, nor choose you, because you were more numerous than any other people, for you were least of all peoples. But because of Yahweh loving you, and because of him guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, Yahweh has brought you out with a strong hand and ransomed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim. And you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations with those who love him and those who guard his commands, but repaying those who hate him to their face, to destroy them. He does not delay to do so with him who hates him. He repays him to his face. That's something else that we need to remember, because we are fearfully and wonderfully created in his image. We do not delay to do so to him who hates him. We repay him to his face. This verse 9 here, and you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations with those who love him and those who guard his commands. Flip to Revelation. Chapter 19, verse 11. This is something we've been coming back to a lot lately, but it matters, because it's the crux of this question of righteousness. Now, we've seen in Revelation 12:17 and elsewhere in Revelation 14 that the remnant are those. Revelation 12:17 says explicitly, the remnant of her seed, the church, those guarding the commands of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yeshua, Messiah. So those who are left of the church guard the commands of Yahweh and have a testimony of Yeshua. Now, that's elsewhere throughout Revelation. And then when we get to Revelation 19:11, which is page number 1, it's easy to remember because it's 19:11, bro. Number 2, it's page 12:13. This is John having a vision of the revelation of Yeshua. And I saw the heaven opened, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called trustworthy and true, and in righteousness he judges and fights. Elsewhere it says, and makes war. There's a lot in that little thing right there. Heaven opened, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on him was called trustworthy and true. Now over here in Deuteronomy, and you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations. Well, what's righteousness? Righteousness, and it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all this command before Yahweh as he's commanded us to do. So Yah is trustworthy, and he's guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations with those who love him. What did Yeshua say? If you love me, keep my commands. And those who guard his commands, with those who love him and those who guard his commands. And the remnant of the church of those who have a testimony of Yeshua, Messiah, and keep the commands. Okay, and then here in Revelation, we see that there's a white horse, and he who sat on it is called trustworthy and true. This is Yeshua, by the way. And in righteousness he judges. Righteousness is the measuring stick. How well did you do those commands? Did you even try to do those commands? Because none of us is going to do it perfectly. Did you even try? Knowing that you were going to mess up. Knowing that that's why you need a Messiah. That's why I need a Messiah. I can only extrapolate that that's why you need a Messiah. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that had been written which no one had perceived except himself. and having been dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. I came not to destroy the Torah or the prophets, but to embody. His name is the Word of Yahweh. There's bad news coming. Here, see that robe that's dipped in blood? That blood, as of yet, where did that blood come from? See, Messiah tells us in Matthew and elsewhere in the Gospels, I will separate my goats from my sheep. I don't know if you've ever owned sheep and or goats. I own both. There's a marked difference between the two. The goats might claim us, but boy, they don't listen. And they are, frankly, more entertaining than the sheep. But those sheep are constant. They're consistent. They're good. But I digress again, and we're barely into Deuteronomy 7. Verse 11, Deuteronomy 7. And you shall guard the commands and the laws and the right rulings which I command you today. And you shall guard the command and the laws and the right rulings which I command you today to do them. And it shall be, because you hear these right rulings and shall guard to do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and loving commitment which he swore to your fathers. So, you shall guard to do these things, and Yah will guard with you the covenant and the loving commitment which he swore to your fathers. This is an if-then. This is a covenant. This is an agreement. If you do this part, Yah will do this part. And shall love you and bless you and increase you, and shall bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land and your grain and your new wine and your oil, and the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flock in the land which he swore to your fathers to give you. We have been more blessed since we started keeping Torah than I've ever been in my life. And I don't mean just materially, although that's absolutely a part of it. I mean an absolute indwelling of the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, tempered by the wielding of that with the authority of Yeshua, and a deep and personal relationship with my Creator. We're blessed. And so there's lots, hundreds of thousands, millions, probably tens of millions of people that would say, that's a works-based theology and we don't do that. To which I would answer, you're right, you don't. And if you're wondering why your faith is so empty, it's because you don't guard your covenants. And dare I say, conditionally, the Father is not guarding his half of the covenant with you either, because you're not keeping yours. And we misunderstand salvation and blessing. Salvation is literally Yeshua. That's what his name means. It's the removal of your death sentence under the law. And while that is the most important thing, we have to ask ourselves, why? Why should I not be slaughtered at the end of an age, why should I not get my blood on Messiah's robe? There's some pretty basic answers for me. It's because there's things that I need to do, that the kingdom needs me to do. I mean, in servitude, man, there's so much blessing. But why, really? It's the whole reason Yeshua came is to be a mediator between us and the Father, to bring us back to the Father. I think this is why a lot of new Christians burn out, because they get saved. They don't even know what they're saved from, but they get saved and they're on fire. And the church fails them because it says, cool, go live a good life. And they're like, all right. And then they plateau. And then it gets old. And it becomes drudgery. And that fire dwindles. If you go and do, it's like throwing gasoline on that last little ember of faith. And I didn't understand why doing filled me up so much when I did for the kingdom, until I started keeping Torah and realized that as Messiah brings us back to the Father is constantly telling us to do. And the fulfillment in this is massive for me. And literally, there are blessings here. And so this is, I mean, I will openly admit my bias here, because I've lived this. I've also lived a long time of pastors telling me, yeah, just because it says that doesn't mean that it means that. And listen, this is what you have to do it this way. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, and I feel really empty. I've done that. I've lived that. I had a very fruitless walk at that time. Then I started doing this, still completely dependent upon Messiah, because no man is perfect, myself included. But walking with Messiah daily, not just paying lip service to him. And in the walking of, the doing of. And it shall be, because you hear these right rulings and shall guard to do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and loving commitment which he swore to your fathers, and shall love you. You want to be loved by God? And it shall be, because you hear these right rulings and shall not just hear them, and shall guard to do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and the loving commitment which he swore to your fathers, and shall love you, and bless you, and increase you, and shall bless the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your land, your grain, and your new wine, and your oil, the increase of your cattle, and the offspring of your flock in the land which he swore to your fathers to give you. Blessed are you above all peoples. There is not going to be a barren man or a barren woman among you or among your livestock. This phrase, above all peoples, we see this over and over again. And Yahweh shall turn away from you all sickness, and put on you none of the evil diseases of Mitzrayim which you have known. But he shall put them on all those who hate you. And you shall consume all the peoples whom Yahweh your Elohim is delivering over to you, Your eye shall not pardon them. Do not serve their mighty ones, for that is a snare for you. When you say in your heart, these nations are greater than I am unable to drive them out. Do not be afraid of them. Remember well what Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and to all of Mitzrayim. Exodus 15:3. Yahweh is a warrior. Yahweh is his name. The great trials which your eyes saw, and the signs and wonders, the strong hand and the outstretched arm by which Yahweh your Elohim brought you out. Yahweh your Elohim does so to all the peoples of whom you are afraid. And Yahweh your Elohim also sends the hornet among them until those who are left, who hide themselves from you, are destroyed. Do not be afraid of them, for Yahweh your Elohim, the great and awesome El, is in your midst. We saw in Deuteronomy 28, if you guard to do all these things, you will be set high above all the nations. There's a little passage back here in Revelation again, 14, verses 7 and 8, which is page 1209. Chapter 14, we'll start at verse 6. And I saw another messenger flying in mid-heaven, holding the everlasting good news, to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give esteem, glory to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made the heavens and the earth and sea and fountains of water. And another messenger followed, saying, Babel is fallen, that great city, Babylon, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. The wine of her wrath of her whoring. All nations have whored, have sinned against Yahweh. Made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. Remember that phrase because it ties in directly to Revelation 19. Over here we saw Yeshua on the white horse, who judges in righteousness and makes war. And his robe is dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. And the armies in the heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. The sharp sword is the truth. And he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. And on his robe and on his thigh he has a name written, Sovereign of Sovereigns and Master of Masters, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So, Yeshua, wearing this white robe, covered in blood, dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God, and righteousness is his measuring stick. And out of his mouth goes this sword, so that he might smite the nations. Righteousness, judgment. So in Revelation 14, fear Elohim and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and the fountain of water. And another messenger followed, saying, Babel is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. The wine, whereas Yeshua is treading the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai. Because Deuteronomy 7:9, and you shall know that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations, with those who love him and those who guard his commands, but repaying those who hate him to their face, to destroy them. And he shall love you and bless you and increase you and bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain, your new wine, your oil, the increase of your cattle and the offspring of your flock, and in the land which he swore to your fathers to give you. Blessed are you above all peoples. This is the sanctification process. As we do these things, as we keep these commands, the world hates it. There are some that tolerate it. The more you do this, the deeper your relationship with Yah, but the more people that you knew before this don't like it. They don't like you. The Sunday churchgoers, your friends, they don't want to have anything to do with you because you are putting the lie to all their pagan bull. People won't return your phone calls or your text messages or your emails because you living a righteous life shows, A, that it can be done when their pastor said that it couldn't be. Now, it can't be done perfectly, again, which is why we have Messiah, but that doesn't mean we don't try. And B, it puts the lie to their paganness. It exposes it. It shines light. You are the city on the hill. You are the lamp that doesn't get put underneath a basket. You are that blinding light of truth that shines on all these lies. And in that sanctification process, blessed are you above all peoples. It can get lonely. It can get challenging. When you say in your heart, these nations are greater than I am unable to drive them out, do not be afraid of them. Remember well that Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and to all of Mitzrayim. And Yahweh your Elohim shall drive out those nations before you little by little. You are not allowed to destroy them at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. I believe that verse right there. There'd be so many dead bodies that they couldn't bury them fast enough. The beasts of the field would become too numerous for you. And Yahweh your Elohim shall drive out those nations before you little by little. You are not allowed to destroy them all at once, lest the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. But Yahweh your Elohim shall deliver them over to you and destroy them with a great destruction until they are consumed. And he shall give their sovereigns, their kings into your hand, and you shall destroy their name from under the heavens. No one is going to be able to stand against you until you have destroyed them. The carved images of their mighty ones you are to burn with fire. Do not covet the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, lest you be snared by it. For it is an abomination to Yahweh, your Elohim. And you do not bring an abomination into your house, lest you be accursed like it. Utterly loathe it and utterly hate it, for it is accursed. I don't know if you can see the clear juxtaposition here. And it shall be, because you hear these right rulings and shall guard to do them, that Yahweh your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and the loving commitment which he swore to your fathers, and shall love you and bless you and increase you and bless the fruit of your womb, bless you above all peoples. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, but this is what you do to them: break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and cut down their asherim and burn their carved images with fire, for you are a set apart people to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. The carved images of their mighty ones you are to burn with fire. Do not covet the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, lest you be snared by it, for it is an abomination to Yahweh your Elohim. And do not bring an abomination into your house, lest you be accursed like it. Utterly loathe it and utterly hate it, for it is accursed. It does not matter what these pagan traditions of man might mean to you when you bring them into your house. If you are to be sanctified unto Yah, if you are to be his chosen people, for you are set apart to Yahweh your Elohim. He has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. Then you are to utterly loathe and utterly hate these things, these pagan things of the people that you've gone to dispossess. This, for me, is working in reverse, because I was in amongst these people and now I've been removed, pulled back, been sanctified, set apart. We are to utterly loathe, in my mind, that churchianity mindset. Babylon, she is whored with all nations. We are to be set above that and loathe it. Loathe it, hate it, destroy it from our midst. The implications are clear. I mean, really good homework is read Deuteronomy 28. Granted, we'll be there in a few weeks, but it's really good homework. Read Deuteronomy 28. And seeing how all this ties together from the beginning of the book, literally from Abraham, we have gone from Genesis to Revelation in the last 44 minutes, talking about righteousness and being sanctified and guarding the Father's commands. This is constant in this book. This book is congruent. That's why I believe there's a conscious or unconscious concerted effort by the church to not have you read this book. Because when you read this book, you realize real quick, oh, we're not doing that. And my heart breaks for those Sunday Christians who think they're good. because I was one of them, and I wasn't good. I was faking it so hard, trying to pretend I was okay, and I was destroyed on the inside. I had a good exterior, but my structure was falling apart. There was no structure. All it was paint and caulk and trim. But there were no bones. There was no foundation. There were no support beams. There were no pillars. There were no columns. It looked good, my faith. But it was paper thin. You could push your finger through it. There was no understanding. And I knew I had Yeshua. I had Jesus. I didn't even know who Yeshua was. And I knew that was right. I could feel that. I could feel that truth. But everything that had been piled on top of that truth felt wrong. And when I watched that house of cards fall apart, that house of cards called a church, that was just one lie balancing one knowingly bad interpretation propped up by one doctrine of man with another bald-faced lie stacked on top of that with another, we're going to precariously set this non-biblical concept right here. And when that whole thing came tumbling down, the only thing that was left was Yeshua. That was the only truth I had left. The Father, I believe, allowed me to see that church of 200 people that I loved utterly implode because of the egos of men, because it stripped away all of that nonsensical human bull. The only thing left was Yeshua. And I missed him. I missed a meeting with him. I didn't have a place to go until I realized, yeah, you do, idiot. It's right here. Church is not a place you go. Faith is not a thing you talk about. Faith is something you do. A relationship is something that takes effort. You have to put energy and time into it. And I built a relationship with Yeshua using his word as the backbone for that. And I started reading voraciously my word, and I discovered really quickly, which will happen if you start at the beginning of the book when all you've read is the end of the book, that everything I knew about my Messiah and my faith was wrong, other than that one truth, that Yeshua did come to atone for my sins. And praise Yah, he did. So my heart breaks for the people who are still stuck in Babylon and don't even know it. And I hope that the Father would continue to use us to literally spread his word. His word is Yeshua. His word is this Bible that Yeshua embodies. I came not to destroy, but to embody the Torah and the prophets. He is physically it. He is the Word made flesh. And I'm hoping that as many people get it as Yah needs to get it, that whatever his will is, that it would be done. Because I don't want to hear at the end of an age, "Depart from me, you who work lawlessness, for I never knew you." Matthew 7:21. And I don't want people I love to hear that either. And when you teach and preach that to people, sanctification becomes real because they don't want to hear it. They would rather hear the words of their pastor than the words of their Messiah. And I can't help them. So, we shake off the dust of that city against them and move on to the next. I'm convicted to say this, then I'm going to shut up. Two things. One, warfare, spiritual, is on an uptick. Keep your brothers and sisters in prayer. That we would fearlessly stand against anything that comes against us. That we would exercise the authority that Yeshua gives us, and that we would flex that power of the Ruach HaKodesh because we're centered in Father Yah. There's been an uptick of warfare. I know it because I see it. I get prayer requests that come across my email box day and night, 24/7, 365. And the volume is up. Keep each other in prayer. 2, if you don't have one of these and you need one, email me. November Tango X-Ray Mike Alpha Golf @Gmail, ntxmag@gmail. If you would like to donate the word, email me, let me know. I am very heartened by our take a Bible, leave a Bible. So bless y'all. Thank you for being here. The good news, literally, is we're set above all of this. If we do Yah's things, we're set above all of this. And while the sanctification process can be intimately painful, we're set above all of this and we have nothing to fear. Much love, y'all. Shalom.